Hi, folks. Welcome. We're just going to wait a few short minutes as folks are still trickling in just a little bit, and we'll start soon. Okay, looks like we're already at 70 people, so I think we're just going to get started here. So hi, everyone, and welcome to the Explore the Coast Grant Program webinar. Thanks so much for joining us today, and also appreciate your flexibility with the rescheduling from last week. My name is Vanessa Oxton, and I'm also pleased to introduce my fellow colleagues, Irvin Tang and Bryce Keys, who will be presenting with me today. And we have Cherie Erickson, who will be moderating the chat and also assisting with any questions. This webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to access this on our SEC website for reference later on. And just wanted to double check. Can y'all see the screen? Yeah, I see some heads bob. Great. And some thumbs up. Thanks so much. Okay. So just a little housekeeping before we begin. Um, I want to bring your attention to our chat and Q&A features that's on the top of your screen. Please use the chat for any comments and general discussions. So if you have any questions related to the application or any topics that were covered during the webinar, please put those questions in that Q&A portion. This would really help us in having your questions all in one area, and so we can get to those questions promptly when that time comes. Closed captioning is also available if you like to use it, so please feel free to enable it. Okay, so for today, we'll do an overview of the Explore the Coast grant program, and then also go into program priorities, the funding, application and scoring, and also then Q&A section of the day. Okay. And going to the next slide. So sorry for the lag. So Cherie will drop the RFP instructions in the chat, so in case you also want to follow along with the information that will be presented today. So to just start off, the Explore the Coast grant program is deeply rooted in the belief that California's ocean, the coast, the beaches are spaces of joy, relaxation, and healing. So that ability to experience the coast without fear of financial costs, physical barriers, or feelings of not belonging is crucial to how people cultivate their own lifelong connections with the coast. The ETC program has 6 priorities, which is providing an enjoyable and healing experience at the coast, providing positive and long-term impacts, inspiring ongoing leadership and coastal stewardship, connecting groups that consistently face barriers by providing opportunities for community leadership, serving the diverse population of California, and reducing economic, physical, operational, or societal barriers. The Explore the Coast Grant Program, or ETC, really seeks to provide those coastal experiences for people and communities who face challenges to accessing or enjoying the coast, or what we refer to as our ETC priority communities. And that includes and not limited to lower income individuals and households, people with disabilities, people of color, immigrant communities, and foster youth, among many others. So on this slide, we'll talk about the type of projects that we fund, such as programs that bring people to the coast to play, to learn how to surf, to kayak, sail, and other activities. Programs that are hands-on, highly interactive, immersive, and help build positive connections with the coast. We are also looking for programs that not only help participants overcome barriers to coastal access one time, but also that help reduce barriers in the long run, such as giving people the skills to feel safe and comfortable near the ocean, letting people see that there are others from their own community who are there at the beach, and teaching folks how to get to the beach, among many other ways to do so. And we're also looking for programs with opportunities to build leadership or job skills. So we have some examples on the screen here. So on the left, there's the Noyo Center for Marine Science. They provide an outdoor marine science after-school program with whale watching, electric boat tours, and fun science activities. In the center, we have the Newater Surf and Ocean Education Outdoor Exploration Camps, where they provide surf and ocean education camps to over 600 youths from low-income and impacted communities from the city of San Francisco. And then we have the Watsonville Wetlands Watch organization that offers kayaking and beach trips for 192 participants and their families. And so there are some projects that we don't fund, and projects that solely, focus on classroom-based programs and or curriculum. We don't fund construction of facilities. But the Conservancy has funded hundreds of projects to build new trails, trailheads, or other amenities like beach stairways, bathrooms, overlooks through our other funding programs. So please contact us directly if you are pursuing that type of project. And we do not solely fund beach cleanup. And so for this year, we do expect, excuse me, about $650,000 to be available for the 2025 to 2026 grant round, but we won't know for sure until the budget is approved in June. And approximately $46,000 of the $650,000 is available for participants to go to the San Francisco Bay shoreline. The remaining $604,000 must be used to bring participants to the outer coast. The maximum award amount is $100,000. Projects can start in early 2026, and then projects must finish by December 2028. Organizations with a current Explore the Coast grant cannot apply for funding that would overlap their existing grant. Therefore, organizations that have a current Explore the Coast grant are only eligible if their existing grant will be complete by June 1, 2026. And then applications are due Friday, January 24th, 2025 by 11:59 p.m. Our selected proposals to be presented to our Conservancy Board for funding approval will be in the fall of 2025. So, excuse me. Once the Conservancy has approved a grant at a public meeting, our staff will prepare a grant agreement setting forth the terms and conditions of the grant. The grantee must sign the grant agreement and comply with all its conditions in order to receive the funds. The expenses are incurred before the grant agreement with the Conservancy is executed cannot be billed to the grant. And also please note that the Conservancy reimburses grantees for the expenses after they are incurred. So that means that the grantee will have to cover the costs of the project between the time the expenses are incurred and when they get paid by the Conservancy. There are some instances where grantees can receive grant funding in advance rather than being paid in arrears. And so also grantees are typically required to maintain general liability, automobile and other items, other forms of insurance during the term of the grant agreement. Also, all Conservancy grantees should expect to be audited by the state of California. It is the grantee's responsibility to maintain all necessary records to substantiate and document all payments made pursuant to a Conservancy grant. And so if a grantee cannot provide any adequate records when they are audited, there may be the possibility, or I'm sorry, they may be required to repay grant funds. And I will pass this on to Bryce, who will go over the application.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yes, so let's go ahead and go through the application together. Our chat monitor, Cherie, is going to drop a link in the chat to the application page so you can follow along if you like. We also have screenshots here for you. So eligible organizations for Explore the Coast grants are public agencies, federally recognized tribes, and nonprofit organizations with 501c3 status. You are going to submit your application to grants@scc.ca.gov on the by the evening of January 24th. And we would like to have Word documents, but PDFs are accepted too, if that's the format that you need to submit with. If you don't have Microsoft Suite or want to collaborate with others on your application, you're welcome to use Google Docs. We have a link on our website for that, and you can download the completed application as a PDF or Word document. So now I'd like to go over the cover page of the application. Wait, yeah, we're still there. Thank you. So first, you're going to want to list your contact information, including your organization, a contact person, their title, and their phone number. Then we're going to have the project information. This is where you're going to list the project name, amount of funds requested, and start and end dates. We have added a spot for you to tell us whether your proposed project is a new or existing program for your organization. So for example, if this is a surf camp that your organization has run 3 times in the past, then this would be an existing program. But if your organization specializes in camping at inland state parks and you're going to start this program to do surf camps, then this technically would be a new program in our eyes. And we're not asking here if you're an existing Explore the Coast grantee. We are trying to know if you have ever run the exact same program that you're requesting funding for. And we use this information to help gauge your organization's capacity to start up a new program or to continue an existing program while reviewing the application. And finally, the cover page ends with location information where you can tell us what facilities or places you will go to during your project. Please note that if you're a current grantee or if you have received ETC funding in the past, you will not get your project manager as a reviewer. So please assume that all reviewers have never heard of your program or your organization before. So that way you make sure you're explaining the project very clearly. This also extends to any application feedback that you have received. If you have a consultation call with us, those people who you have met with for your consultation call will not review your application. And we do this to reduce bias. Next slide, please. All right, let's move on to the application prompts. So you'll see that this year we added a suggested word count range. We added this based on applicant and advisory board feedback to help guide you on how long your responses should be. However, these are just a suggestion of word counts, so you can have shorter or longer responses depending on how you would like to respond to the prompt. 3 questions listed out here, the what, who, and why, and how, help the reviewers to understand your project. So the first question is what? We want to know what the project is, what the participants will be doing. This is your chance to explain really clearly what the activities and the trips will look like so that a reviewer can clearly understand what the day is going to look like for a participant. So for example, you are going to bring low-income youth and their families to the beach for morning surf lessons and a picnic in the afternoon. The second question is who and why. So you will describe the ETC priority community and why the project serves the intended community. So continuing and building on that same example, low-income youth have limited access to green space, and many kids from the city of Santa Ana have never been to the coast, even though it's just 30 minutes away. By providing our surf lessons and lunches to this group, we will show them how joyful and healing the coast can be and how easy it is to access with their families. And then the last question here, how? This is where you can explain any barriers on how the program will address those barriers. So we encourage you to talk about barriers that participants specifically in your community face. So continuing on with the same example, providing surf lessons and lunches for low-income youth reduces the economic barrier or uneconomic barrier because of the price of gas. Lessons, equipment, and food can be expensive. Bringing low-income youth to the nearby beach with their families increases participants' comfort at the coast and shows that they can access the beach easily. So that is the first three questions. Now let's move on to the next slide and talk about ETC priority communities. So this is going to be a table that you're going to fill out where you're going to estimate the number of participants from a priority community that you expect to serve. So ETC priority communities are communities who face challenges accessing or enjoying the coast, such as low-income, BIPOC communities, foster youth, etc. And if you're not sure if the community that you aim to serve falls within, an ETC priority community, either talk to us today during office hours, or you can reach out to us over email. We're happy to help you out with that question. And just keep in mind that at least 70% of your participants should be from an ETC priority community. Next slide, please. All right, in the table, here you'll estimate the number of participants you expect to serve from an ETC priority communities. Please include the source for your estimates, such as school district free and reduced lunch statistics or surveys of your participants from previous projects that your organization has run. In the application instructions, we suggest a few sites that might help you define your program participants if that is helpful. So you can check out those links. It is okay if your numbers reach over 100% in this table. And what I mean by that is that you might have program participants that meet multiple ETC priority community definitions. So for example, if you serve 100 low-income youth with disabilities, you would have 100 participants in the low-income row and then 100 participants in the disabilities row. But the overall percent of Explore the Coast community priorities served would be 100%. And you can find examples of completed tables linked in the application's instructions, and Cherie is also going to put the link in the chat for you. It's a link to a PDF. Next slide, please. So here's the last little piece of that table, and you are just going to let us know here the estimated number of participants or percent of participants from each region in California that your program will serve. And the regions are shown here on the slide, but they're also in the application instructions. Next slide, please. So now we're going to start to talk about other questions in the application. And here I have numbers 5 and 6 about participant outreach and cultural inclusivity. So for participant outreach, here you'll describe your plans on how your organization will engage with and recruit program participants from ETC priority communities. Be sure to address how you're ensuring that you get at least 70% ETC priority community participation. So for example, if you are recruiting at a school that has 50% of its students with reduced lunch programs, how are you making sure that you're getting at least 70% ETC priority community participation? And then for question number 6, cultural inclusivity, we're asking this question because oftentimes program participants from ETC priority communities come from different cultural backgrounds and experiences. So for this question, you will want to address how your program is inclusive of all participants when differences in cultural and social backgrounds, past experiences, knowledge, comfort levels, etc. Exist. So we want to know if cultural differences are considered when participating in program activities. You can write here if your staff also have lived experience or training to be culturally inclusive. Next slide, please. So this question on ability inclusivity asks participants to describe how the program will serve people with physical, cognitive, or emotional disabilities. Even if your program is not specifically serving people with physical, cognitive, or emotional disabilities, you should still answer this question. You can think of the question as if someone with a physical, cognitive, or emotional disability was interested in your program and wanted to participate, would you be able to accommodate them or would you have to turn them away? And please note that projects that don't address this ability inclusivity question in some way will be scored lower. So we strongly encourage you to not leave this question blank. Next slide, please. All right, question 8 asks applicants to describe their relationship with the community that they aim to serve. You can talk here about how you are involving community and leadership opportunities. You can talk about your presence in the community and relationship you have with them and any community partners that will be involved in the management, development, or implementation of this project. Next slide, please. Then we have a question on long-term impacts. So we ask you to describe the ways in which the program is designed to have long-term positive impacts on participants, including a sense of belonging at the coast. This can include partner or participants learning new skills, leadership development, multi-year programs, family involvement, peer-to-peer mentorship, etc. However, you want to answer this question to show long-term impacts. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Irvin to walk us through the rest of the application.
Great, thanks, Bryce. So for question 10, this is the part of the application where you can go over your project scope, and this is divided into 3 parts: project management, project preparation, and project implementation. So you'll see that there are 3 columns. There's in the description column. That's where you can describe each of the scope area. Then in the timeline column, that's where you can state the expected start and end date of each project scope. In the milestone column, that's where you can list the significant step reached in each of these scope category. So for instance, an example milestone for project preparation can be a completed roster of project participants or the completion of instruction for recruitments. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to go over the budget section for the application. So earlier there was a question on reimbursements for this grant. So the ETC grant is a reimbursement-based grant. And I just want to highlight that we do offer an advance payment program. So yeah, depending on the program needs, like if selected, you can work with your project manager to request for advance payments of the grants. But in general, when it comes to our reimbursement for program costs, you will have to pay for the program costs like upfront, then submit an invoice to us for a grants disbursement. And for each of these disbursement, we will take a 5% withholding and release the withholding upon project completion. So in the budget section, applicants are allowed to budget up to 20% of their total grant towards indirect costs. And we ask that in entering the budget, just round to the nearest $100. For more information on allowable grant costs, yeah, sure, we'll drop the link to our allowable cost documents in the chat, and that will have more information on what what we allow for, what the grant covers. Slide, please. Okay, so for our budget table, we do offer two options um, to submit your budget. So there's option one is to budget by task, and option two is to budget by cost category. Next slide, please. So option one, to budget by task. This format reflects the format that we use for the project's work program, and this is to invoice once the grant is approved. So when you put it in this format, this facilitates the ease of invoicing for our team, and we strongly suggest that you use the three tasks that we have defined. That's project management, project preparation, and project implementation. In the narrative section, please break down the project implementation costs by labor, equipment, and supplies and transportation, and others. We recognize that this may not be the way that you like typically create budget, so which is why we offer the second option for budget tables. So this is the budget table format. Next slide, please. So to budget by cost category, this format can be more intuitive depending on what your organization is used to budgeting by. So here you can allocate the costs by the type of expenses such as personnel, equipment, subcontractor. In the narrative section, we ask that you estimate the percent of staff time spent on project management and preparation versus the delivery of program or implementation. So under implementation, please summarize your anticipated costs for equipment and supplies, and also the cost and role of subcontractors. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is question 12 is like cost to participants. So this is where we want to understand if the grant will enable like free or like subsidized costs like for participants, and if the program does offer any like subsidies or scholarships, like how will participants be selected? So, and for question 13, other fundings, this is where we want to just get a better understanding of the total program costs, like outside of what you plan to apply for under the Explore the Coast grant. Like, are there other funders? Like, how much is the overall cost? And we don't require like match funds or any like in-kind donations to be like, yeah, you don't have to put that information on the application. So you can just give like a high level of like what the overall program cost is for your program. Next slide. Finally, applicant capacity. So this is where we just want like better understanding of how long your organization has been running. So when was your organization established? Like what's the size and where are you guys like based out of? How many employees are there or like volunteer, just like staff on the team. We also want to learn more about the staff's like expertise, like what are your background in administering like grants of a similar size, or like like has the organization like completed like other similar projects? Then finally, like, are there other like project partners involved? Like, and if so, like, what are their roles? So this is in this question, you can just elaborate more on the organization's capacity and their background in administering grants and program of this size. Next slide, please. And selection criteria. So we recommend like looking through the criteria to understand how we select and score all projects. So the selection criteria can be found on the application instruction, which I'm sure you can drop to the chat. So all grants or all applications are scored out of 70 points. So questions are weighted differently. So we highly encourage you to look at our scoring criteria to just get a better understanding of what questions are scored and how they are scored. Okay, next slide, please. Right, and I'll pass it back to Vanessa.
Thanks, Irvin. Excuse me. So as a resource to applicants, we'll be holding 2 virtual sessions on Teams, Microsoft Teams, that we're referring to as our application assistance office hours to really help with, as the name suggests, application assistance, budget questions, and project eligibility. Attendees can ask questions that will be answered in a group setting. And also, if time and availability allows, attendees can also request to be moved to a breakout room for one-on-one questions. Our first one will be on January 9th, 2025, 3 to 4 p.m. That is on a Thursday. The second one is on January 21st. Apologies for on the screen, but it's January 21st, 2025, which is on a Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And registration is required to access this Teams link, which Cherie will be able to drop on the chat for both of those dates. Please contact us at our email at explorethecoast@scc.ca.gov for any questions, inquiries, and also requests for consultations, for project consultations. Please also include the ETC region of your project in that request. And note that the application submission itself must be made to grants@scc.ca.gov. So it is separate there. And just on the slide, we have some quick tips and reminders. As Bryce highlighted earlier, we added that suggested word count for this year's RFP to serve as a guide to help you fully address the application prompts. Please keep in mind that the ETC grant program is highly competitive, and given this year's amount of funding, it's even more so. So if you are a returning or previous grantee, your project manager will not be reviewing your application to reduce any bias. And also that goes the same for any staff person who assisted you in a consultation. So please make sure to answer all the questions thoroughly. And lastly, we encourage you to email us as any questions or join our office hours. We're here to help you submit the strongest application possible for your organization's success. And so now we're here in our questions portion. Please could say it out loud, or we have some actually in our chat. I'm going to just stop sharing right now. Okay.
We
Sure,
have
you
a
go
lot
ahead.
of questions. Yeah, we have a lot of questions, and I think there are a few that would be great to answer for everyone. So the first one is from Brandon, and they say, how are we supposed to guarantee that 70% of our participants will fall within the ETC priority community categories? We can describe the demographics of the community we are offering the program in, but can't say for sure who would sign up. What if our actual participants give us less than the 70% threshold?
I can answer this question for us. So that the answer I would say is that you want to really address this in question number 5 that talks about recruitment or participant outreach. So we understand that if you're just opening up a program, anyone can come and sign up for the program, and you don't have control over what priority communities or what percentage you're going to get. But if you have if you work with another organization that really targets certain communities, that really serves those communities, that's a way that you can increase the participation of ETC priority communities. You can also have this funding only go towards supporting a smaller subset of participants in your program. But the purpose of this funding is really to serve and help get ETC priority communities to the coast. So if you don't have a specific strategy to really reach those participants, I would say that you might not have a very competitive proposal, but you're welcome to reach out to us and get a consultation call to specifically talk about your program to understand if you would be competitive for this grant. But yeah, we really want the funding to go to those communities. So that's what we're really looking for.
And just
Anything
to
else to
add,
add? Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
great.
thanks. Just a quick add-on. On that RFP application, we do offer some tools that could help to, just to verify or see if the area that you're serving is serving like a ETC prior community. So we do have links in that application if you that could be helpful as well. And thanks, Bryce.
Okay, next we have a question kind of around what does it mean to be considered a new program? So this person asks if they currently have an outdoor program that's working with a particular student population that doesn't involve visiting the coast, but it does include outdoor recreation activities. If they submitted an ETC application, would it be considered new if they recruit students from a different population and they offer a program that's focused specifically on the coast? So yeah, just clarification on like, what does it mean to be a new program?
Yeah, so I would consider this a new program. You can think of it as, do you already have relationships with like the subcontractors that you're going to be working with because you've run programs with them before, like a bus company or a kayaking company? Like, have you done the exact program before? Because we do get applications uh, from organizations that do the same program over and over year to year, and so they have established ways to recruit from different communities or to really do the activities they've done them many times. So it sounds like it's going to be a new participant community or a new community of participants, and you're going to be doing new activities. So yes, I would consider this a new program. And then you can talk about your organization's experience doing outdoor activities.
Thank you, Bryce. Let's see, we've got a lot of questions in here and I want to make sure everybody gets answered. Okay, so next we have, they understand that this is a highly competitive grant round. Can we apply in partnership with another organization? We subcontract them to provide the surf portion of our surf and STEM programming. They also provide surf programming for other nonprofit organizations. If we each apply separately, would we essentially be in competition for funds?
Just for clarity, when you're saying in partnership, so are you saying for both of you will be as the grantee?
Christina, you can feel free to hop off. You can like get on the off mute if you want to further clarify.
I think we have to allow her mic.
Okay, Christina, if you raise your hand, I can. Okay, both grantees on one application is the clarification versus two separate applications.
Yeah, I would
think-
encourage, oh, sorry, Vanessa. Go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to say as well that encourage probably would just be one organization. And then you could also state in your application that it will be in partnership with this organization and specifically naming them or whichever is the subgrant or the subcontractor in that in whichever that prompt that shows like who is your project partner. So you could go into the details in that aspect. And if you were to go separate, you would then it would be in competition with one another. And sorry, Grace or Bryce, would you like to add anything as well?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay,
Thanks, Vanessa.
problem. And was that helpful, Christina?
Okay. Okay, so there have been a few questions about what is outer coast and what is bay, and we just want to clarify that the bay shorelines are specifically the San Francisco Bay. That sounds correct, right? Yes.
Anything inside of the bridge, the Golden Gate, is what we classify as bay shoreline.
Yes. Okay. So if an organization is based in the Bay but travels to the outer coast with the participants, is that taken into consideration? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the reason for the delineation between those two is that we do have limits on how much funding can go towards the bay shoreline. So if you have a project that goes to the outer coast, you actually there's more funding available for that. So definitely taken into account, and that's why the location information is very important on the first page.
Okay. Finding more questions. Can a project that includes classroom lesson to prepare youth for a subsequent trip to the coast be eligible? And the answer to that is yes, as long as it's under 25% of the total time that the students are engaged in the program. Any notes from you all?
I would just add a note that the intention of this grant program is to really get people outside to explore the coast. So and we expect this to be a competitive year. So if you have classroom portions, you might not be as competitive as a fully outdoor program, but you're welcome to reach out to us and talk about your program a little bit more to see if it would be competitive.
Okay. We also have a question. Can we submit 2 applications for 2 different projects if they're in different regions, one being in the North Coast and the other being in the Bay Area?
Yes, you can. Oh, sorry.
Just go
Doing it
ahead.
again. Yes, however, we'll probably only choose one because we want to make sure that we're supporting more organizations. So I would encourage you to select your most competitive proposal.
Okay. Does a direct or in-kind match from partners improve a project's chance of being funded?
For that, that's not part of our project selection. So yeah, any pieces there.
Yeah, like Vanessa said, we don't give you points
Yeah.
for that. However, we do like to see, support from coming from other places. So whether that's voluntary support, monetary support, yeah.
Okay. If we would like to take 2 different field trips under this one grant, would this work? Basically, we would get 2 years of field trips out of one grant, and yes, that would work.
As long as it's all going to the coast.
Yes. Then we have a question just about specific locations. Is Pismo okay in Monterey and Santa Cruz? Yes. Yeah.
The locations, yeah.
Okay. We have a question about the funding. Why is the pool of funds so limited this year? They said it sounds like there would only be around 5 to 10 grants that we could fund this year. What are any comments on this?
I don't particularly have a comment on it, but I did yeah, Trish Trish is our supervisor.
I noticed my mic just got enabled, so I'm gonna guess you want me to answer. The reason is we have 2 sources of funds that we've always had for this program, and those are the 2 we have this year. We had a short-term blip in, like, a big increase in ETC funding in 2021 when the legislature put $14 million in our budget for Explore the Coast. So in the past few years, the funding has been, we've been spending that 14 million, but it's gone now. So we're back to our base level, which is about a minimum of 650,000 a year, and then depending on other things at the agency, we might be able to bump it up. And I'll just say that we are always looking for ways to get more ETC money. So we know it's not enough. That's why we're really stressing it's going to be a super competitive year.
Okay. Thank you, Trish. Next question is, what if a project brings students to both the Bay shoreline locations and the outer coast locations during the program? And we have funded projects that do this, so it should be fine, but I'll let others speak to that as well.
Yeah, so we, like Cherie said, we do allow this, but we just might have like less funding available specifically for your program to go to the Bay shoreline. So we will see how it all ends up after we've made grant selections, but we might reach out to you saying we can only fund this many field trips going to the Bay shoreline, the rest have to go to the outer coast. But apply with the program that you really want to implement, and we will try to work with you afterwards to make sure it falls within our guidelines for the funding.
Okay, and next we have Ashley asking, does the remainder of funding roll over to the next year? I'm not quite sure what this question means, but yeah, I'll let somebody else answer that.
A follow-up question would be, are you talking about your own program or the ETC funding? Let me allow your mic. Go ahead, Ashley. Ashley, your mic is enabled if you would like to unmute.
Thank you. So I was just talking about, we received in the past coast to coast funding, and for this future funding, we were wondering if it's a rollover, if we don't utilize the expenses in the 1 year, if those funds will roll over into the next year until the grant term ends.
Yes. So you can, if you don't use the money in the year that you have in the proposal, you would be able to use it in the following year. We do have some limits on liquidation dates, but we can talk to you about that once awarded the grant.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we have a question. if visiting something like an aquarium and then going to the beach right afterwards, would only the beach portion count as coastal time? And I'm gonna say yes. We would only fund the portion of the program that has the coastal, like the actual beach time. Does that sound correct?
We've had instances where we do fund like aquariums. However, again, we do really encourage being able to visit at the coast, at the base shoreline, so that may be a bit more competitive. But we have funded going to aquariums in the past.
Great.
And this can, and we've seen aquariums more for like allowing more people with different abilities to be able to
Mhm.
access, marine life. So just want to add that extra layer, but definitely agree with Vanessa about that distinction.
All right, next question. Will you offer partial rewards, or would you be more likely to reject a proposal that requests a higher amount of funding?
We generally look at the overall project, and we award projects and then look at how much funding we have, and we'll offer partial awards. So it really depends on how many awards we are able to give out next year and how much funding that all will take up. But if you do have a higher amount, it could mean that we might reduce yours. But we don't know at this point. But yes, partial awards are something that we do versus outright rejecting.
Hmm.
We don't like to do that as much.
And this answers Francesca's question. Do you ever award funding at a lower amount than the applicant applied for? So yes, we do. Okay.
And
we're almost through
one-
the Q&A questions, but you continue, Bryce.
One more thing. We will reach out to you and say, hey, we can offer you this much money. Would you like to do that? And if so, like, how would you like to change the program to scale it back a little bit? So you will have a chance to interact with us a bit before officially getting the award. So just wanted to say that as well. Go ahead, Sri.
Okay. If we apply for multiple years of support, is it possible that only some years would be supported, or would the entire application be rejected? And I think this kind of just goes back to we have partial awards sometimes, depending on what the funding is. But I'll let the others speak to this.
I'm sorry. So for the question, it's more asking if the again goes back to that partial awards, if we would actually fund the entire project.
So
Sorry
the
if I
question, yeah, no, the question is if you're applying for a project that takes place over multiple years, but there isn't the funding for multiple years, is it possible to get an award that would fund a shorter amount of time versus the project just getting completely rejected?
Yeah. So I would say we would reach out to you and say, we need you to scale back. And you can choose, okay, instead of 3 years, we'll just do 2 years of funding. And that's how you scale it back. But we would reach out to you first before like I said, we prefer to give out partial awards than completely rejecting applications.
Okay.
We will work with you to see what's possible. Thanks, sorry.
No, it's okay. We have more questions about specific locations. Is Sassoon Marsh an acceptable location? And that is a part of the Bay shoreline. So you would apply as part of the Bay shoreline region. Next, we've got Brandon. Is there a board resolution requirement? And yes, there is. To accept our funds, we want to see a board resolution accepting the funds.
Yeah,
And
that comes like way later though. That'll
Mhm.
come in fall. So once you have gotten your notice that you were awarded funding, you can start working on that, including the board resolution.
Yes. Are a series of trips more competitive than a single day, one-time trip to the coast?
We, okay.
You were gonna go.
We do get this question, and the answer would be as long as you have lasting impacts, we don't wait more than the other. We generally do see that it's very clear long-term impacts with multi-touch events or programming, but we like to have a mix of both. Again, so long as there's some clear long-term impacts on the participants.
Okay. We are closing in on our hour together, so I want to make sure we get as many questions answered as possible and prioritize ones that we haven't touched on yet. Okay. Our organization has 2 different underserved groups we are interested in serving throughout this program, senior adults and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Could we include projects to serve both in our application, or would it be more competitive for us to just focus on serving one group? And I think you could include both in the application. Yeah.
I would just make it really clear your outreach strategies. And then we've actually had this question before about the elderly population being an ETC priority community, and by itself, we have determined that they are not. But in conjunction with like another ETC priority community, they would be. So low income seniors or seniors with disabilities, etc. So I would just keep that in mind and reach out to us if you want more specific advice on that.
All right, and then we have question, is priority given to newcomers or to people who have received grants in the past, or is it solely the point-based system? And we do go off of the scoring criteria. There is a point on there that is around like capacity to manage a grant, which if you're a person, if you've received a grant in the past, then that might add to your capacity if we've seen that. But the scoring criteria are the only things that we're scoring the applications on. Okay. Also, just in general around the ETC priority communities, we understand that these are like estimates and you can do the best with the data that you have. We understand that like you can't tell the future and know exactly who's going to be in your program. So I would just say use current data and whatever information you currently have to give us the most accurate representation of what could be a part of the ETC communities. Do you all have any notes on how to fill out those tables or finding data for the ETC, what ETC priority communities you're serving?
I'm sorry, Sheree, did you ask if we have?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, we do have example tables, yes. And they're linked in the application. We have example tables you can look at. And then we also have linked some in the application instructions. We have a few links of places where you can go and try to define your community. So for example, I did City of Santa Ana in my example. I can look that up on these websites and determine like what percent is reduced lunch program or what percent has a pollution burden. So you can look at it that way.
Yes.
But yeah, those
and
are in the application.
Those resources are in the instructions as well. Yeah. Okay, and then
Sure.
our last question, I know it's right at 2. So The question is about, would kayaking on coastal rivers be acceptable, or does it need to be specifically the ocean? Followed by a similar question, does kayaking and birding in a lagoon count towards the Explore the Coast program?
So, Vanessa, I'm not sure if you're talking, but you're muted.
Oh yeah, I was sorry. I'm sorry, I forgot the question already as I was just answering. Was the question about if
Lagoons and rivers, are they eligible?
I believe so, but it's also depending on the location. So that might be helpful to be able to provide a little bit more specificity in that one. But Trish
Yeah,
looks
Trish, go
like she
ahead.
hopped on. Yeah.
Yeah, lagoons are definitely eligible.
Yeah.
Rivers, you've got to be near the coast, really near the coast. So, not a automatic no, but you really need to be near the coast. The funding source we have is restricted. In fact, you need to probably be within the coastal zone because of the restrictions on the funding source we have.
The example given was Salinas River Lagoon.
Salinas River Lagoon, yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that we got to all the questions in the chat. I'm apologize for the Q&A feature not working. That was a bummer for me. But yeah, that was it. That was all the questions.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. And then this webinar will be available on our SEC website as well. All right. Take care.